The Simone Feiler Podcast, giving authors a platform. Welcome to the podcast.
Well, I have had the pleasure of spending 5 days recording the fabulous audiobook, The Modern Man's Code to Manhood, How to Win the War with Yourself, Become Emotionally Intelligent and Master Yourself, narrated by the author himself, Brendon Giebel. Brendon's put together a very comprehensive guide with his audiobook, beginning with how real men have basically been watered down to how they can find that inner man's strength to shine like an absolute beacon, not only for themselves, but for the women and children and family and friends in their life too. Welcome to my podcast, Brendon.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, awesome. Well, first up, how did you find the experience recording your audiobook and working with me?
Yeah, it was amazing. I think the first day for me was a bit different, but it was great. I really enjoyed it.
What do you mean different?
I thought I could read better than what I did that day.
Right. Don't worry about how you read in there. You know, afterwards we take out all the breaths and all the mistakes and stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll sound good.
I think you did a really good job. It was a very, very interesting listen from my perspective. Not only have you written the book, though, now narrated it, The Modern Man's Code to Manhood, you're also a human behaviour expert, life strategist and speaker, and the founder of AMD, Advanced Men's Development, along with being the creator of the app, AMD App. You sure have been busy. Do you sleep?
One of my mantras is sleep when you're dead.
Like Bon Jovi said.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations and well done. Obviously, you know, work's a big part of your life and you enjoy what you're doing. But I want to go back a little bit before you embarked on this journey. What was life like for Brendon then?
I was in construction and there just was something I just wasn't happy. Didn't matter how many things I did. And I was struggling with all these things. You know, I had eating disorders. I was doing excessive workouts. For some reason, just made me happy. Like doing all these things and causing pain to myself somehow made me happy, and I enjoyed it, but didn't at the same time. And I was working fly in, fly out. I was a carpenter, and things just got too much. And one day, I was only moments away from jumping off a 7-story building, and so it wasn't fun for me. And that was the thing that really pushed me to become better. I think it could have gone either way that day.
That's terrifying. Scary.
Well, I wouldn't, your trauma leads to your transformation, so I wouldn't change it, and I'm grateful for that happening.
But what would you say to guys listening who feel that they're so deep down that hole that they've, been having those thoughts, to give them hope that they can turn it around?
What I would say is just make a decision to start with. It's like it all just starts from a decision. If you make a decision that I want to start doing better, you'll eventually find the way to do it. But if you'll wake up every day and you're like, I don't want to do this anymore, that's what you're telling yourself. But just make a decision, right? I don't care, I'm going to do it. I'm going to make my life better. And then just take one small little step each day. I think too, and don't listen to the stats. Like there's a book called Influence, The Psychology of Social Proof and all of this. And it talks about all these different studies of if they have a suicide rate jumps if there's a story in the news or something like this. And so we have a big focus on speak up, talk about it, this and that. And it's okay, like socially, it's okay to kill yourself. So my personal belief is that the more we're talking about it, the more we're allowing it, almost as such.
Yeah. Not
so much allowing it, but it works on that social proof thing about putting so much focus on it, saying it's socially acceptable almost, if you know what I mean. That's my I'm not saying that's the only thing, but, talking's not working. You can see it's not working.
Yeah.
So I think it just starts with making a decision that you want to change, you want to do better, and then, it'll start coming to you what you need to do after that.
Yeah, really good advice. I agree with you, though. When I was working in radio, I actually remember the day sitting in the boardroom when they said, like, the laws on what you can broadcast have changed, because back in the day you weren't allowed to say if people suicided, and then from one day to the next, basically, they said you can. And yeah, having it out there, it gives people, other people that are listening to the news and whatnot, ideas like that's an out. So I definitely agree. And in particular, like doing the last few chapters of your book, or the last 8 chapters, talking about what you think you become, When did you sort of come to that?
The first time was when I flew over to Perth to an NLP course. That was one of a bit of a shift that went for me. It was like one of the big shifts. And that was just talking so much about how our thoughts create our reality. And this was completely new to me. I didn't know that. And so that's when I first started hearing about that and seeing how, like, what we do, how it affects us and how we think and all of that. And so that was when I first, as I said, heard about it and was really implementing it. And then everything that kind of comes up for me now, I'm like, cool, how did I create this? What's going on in my mind to do this? Because everything's a manifestation of ourselves, whether we believe it or want to believe it or not.
Yeah.
And that's how I just realized that, you know, we have the power to change anything, and it all starts with the things we think.
Yeah, brilliant. I've been thinking along those lines, and I've been lucky enough to have people come in and read stories like yourself to me, and that's how I basically found out about it, that your thoughts create your reality. And I've been doing the things in your book, like meditating and being grateful, and which has been really fruitful in my business, you know, because I started out having a relationship breakdown at the end of 2016, and someone mentioned to me, can you record an audiobook? And I was like, yeah, I can record an audiobook. And this used to be basically a room that stored all my ex's stuff in here. Yeah. So I repurposed this, and I was like saying to myself all the time, I can do this. And now 7 years later, it's like, I'm doing this thing. So I definitely agree. What you think comes to fruition. But more about you, because this is your podcast. Sorry, I'm chatting away. What can men expect working with you through your advanced men's development course?
I think the biggest is, and it's something that it's obviously evolved right now. Like, if you asked me this question 12 months ago, it would have been different. But right now, it's coming back to the truth of who they are. Like, over time, we get put so much limitations on ourselves from society, from our beliefs, from, you know, everything that happens. Yeah. And so we're coming back to who we are, coming back to our true man that we are and true whatever we're here for, and letting go of those limitations. And we work through beliefs, emotions. I think they're the fundamental things. Like, once you work through that, plus improving the relationship with yourself, when you do those two things, everything else kind of flows on after that. And it can be a little bit daunting at first, because, you know, emotions for men can be a bit hard to talk about. The thing is too, we don't need to talk about things, because if you go in to see, or anyone, if you talk to someone every week and you're talking about your problems each and every week, you're just reinforcing to yourself that you've got them. I'm not interested in hearing about them. We're going in to start working through them. Yeah. So it's a bit more of a no bullshit approach, and just working in, we're going to get as much done as we can. And also understanding that I'm not there to do it for them. I can't do it for them. I'm not willing to do it for it. But I will guide them to allow them to do it for themselves. And that means that it's lasting change then, because they're doing it, right? Yeah. And I have clients that 12 months later are still seeing little things. Like last week, a client messaged me and said he booked a flight, a one-way flight to Europe, and he would have never done that by himself ever. Right. And so that was, I think it was 8 months ago now. And so it's like, things still happen when you start improving and start changing and taking on little habits and everything. So what's in the book is slightly different to what I do with one of my clients, but I give them that, and it comes with everything that they can follow that themselves, because I think, you know, they can access that. What I do is more work, probably at a deeper level, rather than just giving them external things to do. We go inside and work through that.
So that's working with you through your website, through AMD?
Yeah.
So how did you, well, firstly, I wanted to ask you about your app and what's involved with your app.
So it's actually just gone through a major update. So it has the foundations of like how to track everything that I kind of go through in that book. Right. And we've just updated it with the expansion map at the end, and it has like your purpose, your mission, your values, and goes through all of that. And then has the 16 flips that we don't cover in the book. Yeah, I touch a bit on one of them. Yeah. But it entails all of those 16 flips as well. So it's like everything you need in the palm of your hands.
Yeah. Well, with your book, how did that come to pass? You obviously had your website and your courses up and running. Yeah, how did the book come together?
I don't know. I think I just started reading, and I was like, I think I can do something. And it took me a while to start reading. I honestly don't know exactly why I started it.
Was it COVID? When? Yeah.
No, it was a little bit after. Well, it was during COVID when I, like, about halfway through when I started writing it.
Right.
But yeah, I think I just wanted to. I felt like I had something to say, and I wanted to say it. And I could say a video, and it didn't really reach all that many people. So I'm like, I like writing, which my mother's still surprised compared to my English at school. But yeah, that's how it just came about. I just started writing, and I was like, you know what, I really enjoy this. And I felt like I could get more of a message out when I was writing. You know how some people, they speak better, or they write better, or whatever,
or do art or whatever.
Yeah,
everyone's got their own thing.
And so for me, I like writing. It's kind of almost peaceful for me to just sit there and write. And that's how it's kind of come about.
Right. Well, there's a lot of really, really good stuff in there. You've certainly laid some awesome foundations to build from in the book with your 5 pillars you mentioned, the 4 laws, the daily 8s, which we've listened to in the last couple of days. Tell us a little bit about each of these. What are the 5 pillars, and sort of how did you come up with those?
The 5 pillars are just from I've read hundreds and hundreds of books. And so one thing I learned is information and courses. I've done a lot of courses, and I've gone to a lot of seminars and everything. And someone said to me, a lot of people go to these things and then they might have a workbook or whatever and read a book and they don't do anything. So I made a conscious effort to, whatever I did, not to overload myself, but just take one big key takeaway from everything that I did. If it was a course, if it was a seminar, if it was a book, I just take one big thing. And so just from over time of kind of, looking at all these different things, that's where they came about. I'm like, you know what, I like that. And I started doing it. Some of them I didn't. And yeah, that's kind of how they all came about eventually. And when I was like, oh, these are what I like, I started just going a bit deeper on them and asking, like, why was that important to me? What about that resonated with me? And kind of how could I relate actually something to my life previously where that did show up in my life somewhere. And it wasn't until it's that last pillar too. It used to be the 4, but the latest edition that I just published and everything, that added in that 5th one as well, because that was never there.
Right. You did mention in there that you probably have a lot more that you could say now, because it's a year on since you've written the book. Is that from reading or from, doing your courses with your men that come to you? Or
yeah, and I would say too, like, we've helped over 1,000 men now, and the ripple effect from them is probably
amazing.
For at least 4,000 or 5,000. But just through that, going through and having that life experience of doing all those and seeing like what their problem is and everything, and just seeing patterns, picking up on patterns, and then also all of the knowledge. Like, I always am doing something, like learning as well for my own personal growth. And so it's just all of those different things that I've done and know would be something that I would say differently. Not so much that I would say it differently, just my knowledge has expanded on some of those things. Yeah. And I feel like if I was to write a book now, it would probably wouldn't be for everyone. It would probably be a little bit more in depth. Like, I've kind of gone into epigenetics, quantum physics, all that. Like,
right.
I'm not like studying in a university or anything, but I'm just doing my own study. I feel like that's better for me anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of gone down that rabbit hole lately, which is super interesting, and it makes so much sense. So yeah, it would probably be a bit more of a book that you'd have to take a bit more time to read, I think.
Yeah, reread and write notes. Go look that up.
Yeah.
Sounds like it. But you certainly have got some foundations in there that I've been really stoked to be hearing, because they follow on, like I said, I love meditation and I love affirmations, and There's quite a few people that I follow on Instagram, on YouTube that I've been listening to for the last 6 or 7 years, like Jake Ducey and Aaron Doherty and guys like that. Brian Scott, The Reality Revolution. He's amazing in particular when it comes to affirmations, talking about, no bad stuff, just good stuff, which a lot of your book is about, don't down talk to yourself, do good things for your body. So the 8 dailies where you give points to yourself every day, like that's such a great foundation, not just for men, but for everybody to go by. How did you like pinpoint, like, these are the 8 things that are really good to, get you out of that hole?
Yeah. Well, I'd heard somewhere too, or learnt, that if you don't track, you can't know. So something I'm really good at is making things simple. And so it's like, how can I track this? How can I know what I'm doing? And it kind of makes it a game almost. A lot of people like a bit of competition, so it kind of makes it a game. It was kind of similar to the pillars. I just was like going through everything, and I'm like, what can I do? And I was like trying to add each area that I wanted to bring up in my life. I would add some kind of task that would help me with that. And so at one point I had like 16.
Right.
And
I wondered if you'd started out with more.
Yeah, I had lots. And so I kind of refined it down a little bit from then. And I think that kind of covers pretty much every area without taking up 5 hours every morning or every day to do it. So that's kind of how that came about. And it was just like constant doing and trying and doing and trying. And now it's something that I religiously do every single day, and I feel amazing for it.
Yeah. Well, I'll just let our listeners know they are workouts, smoothies, GCGs, which is gratitude, reading, text messaging. I don't do that, but I really like that. Affirmations, meditation, and your nightly rituals. All of those, from just going through the last chapters today and yesterday, and certainly set you up for like the best day if you can get through those. For guys that are listening to us having a chat here, and they want to improve themselves, why would you urge them to reach out to you? Firstly, why would you suggest that they read your book? Let's do that.
I think one big thing, and it starts at the start, is it gives them the possibilities and it gives them the hope. You think about, there's so many men that may have gone through a relationship breakdown, but there's a small little tiny bit of hope. And that kills them because they're thinking that hope of getting back together, they might not want anything. So a little bit of hope makes a big difference. And I also say that sometimes we need someone else to believe in us before we can believe in ourselves. And so that's why I lay that at the start, is saying like, they can do that. Like, this isn't hard. It's simple. It just takes a little bit of effort, and that anything's possible. And so I lay that out to start with, so they go, okay, cool, like this, I can start doing this. Because if you look at it as a big whole, you're going to be like, I give up, overwhelm, procrastination, all that kind of stuff comes in, So that would be the first thing, is like, and it's real and it's raw and there's no bullshit, and it's not about trying to downplay anything. It's like,
It's just get your finger out and get on with it, buddy.
Yeah, pretty much.
It really is. But I guess you're that person, because some of them mightn't have anyone that can give them any hope at all, and they think it's all lost. So, I like the way that you write throughout your book, like, I'm not going to do it for you. You have to do it, but, I'll be there to guide you and to say, hey, you can, man. So how do people contact you then?
So there's a couple of different ways. They can go to advancedmensdevelopment.com.au. That's the main website. There's also brendongiebel.com, which is there's just kind of like events, and all of my programs essentially are there. I'm actually going through a really exciting time at the moment, going from just doing one-on-ones and start doing events. So anyone listening will probably eventually see a few Facebook ads and stuff running.
Awesome. That's a great step. So then you'll help more people on
So I've just very limited at the moment, obviously doing one-on-ones. And so for the last 12 months, I've been like, how can I get the same level of results, but to more people? And so, we've kind of really gone through a big phase, and I've got some amazing people helping me at the moment. Have you
got a team?
Happening. Yeah, I've got a couple. I've actually got 2 new that are starting on the 8th of next month as well.
And have they done your course? So they've worked with you?
Yeah, that both of them are fortunate. I'm fortunate enough. Like, 2 of them they're both in sales, and yeah, one of them was nearly about to kill himself before he saw me.
Wow.
And now he's never been better. And he was like halfway through the program, he's like, I want to work for you. And he just kept hounding me. And I said, what do you do? And he's like, sales. And I was like, all right, we'll talk later.
Yeah, that's a testimonial in itself,
Yeah.
isn't it?
And then so I've got, just the social media, 2 ladies that do my social media, and got a marketing team and all that kind of stuff. So things are moving quickly. I think it's because it's not like
it's needed.
Yeah, but also too,
it's really needed.
Yeah, but also too, it's like I live what I teach. I'm the number one testimonial for it, and I think that makes the difference too. It's like if I was preaching something that I didn't do myself, people will pick up on that eventually. Yeah. And there's been a number of people that have done or had calls with other programs out there and stuff, and they end up working with us. So there must be something different that we're doing that's there, and that's kind of what I put it down to, is like, it's real and we do the work ourselves, and anyone that works for me, I'm like, cool, like you've got to read this and I want you to live by this.
Yeah,
and if
it's
you're
a
not
brotherhood,
you
mentioned that in there. It's a brotherhood.
Yeah.
And how long have you been doing this for?
I'm in my 3rd year of doing this.
Right.
Yeah.
That's great that you're growing so quickly, and obviously, helping a lot of people to get out of that mindset of being negative and and also I wanted to make mention of the fact that the role model that a man is for their children, because I love that analogy where you said the guy, for the little boy, he has to demonstrate how he can grow up to be a man, and for the girl, how to be a man that their little girl would want to eventually settle down with. There's so many single parents, single mothers, and I think it's very timely.
Yeah, but it's like I don't think people realize how much they influence their kids. Like, when you're working through my own stuff and then also working through with all my clients, it's like crazy. The things of where little things start, and the examples that you're giving your kids and everyone around you. Like, the standard you walk past is the standard you accept, right? And so if your kids grow up and they see you coming home and having a drink every afternoon, I've got nothing against drinking, but what's the example that you're teaching your kids to do? Yeah. And I think that alone, it's not until something bad happens in their life that they start realizing, what have I been doing? Or then they start wanting help or something like that. But that example is like, they're yours. Like, take responsibility for them. Do whatever you can to be the best for you, because especially with the single mothers and everything, like, I take my hat off to them. It must be hard.
Yep.
But a female
I can
can't
vouch for that.
A female can't teach a boy how to be a man, because it's just like,
because you're not a man.
Yeah,
you're a woman.
Like a father can't teach a daughter how to be a woman.
Yeah.
Same. So
they need a good role model, and if the man walks out and the woman hasn't got any other males close, or then they've got no role model.
Yeah. Or if they're going, either way is going from a relationship, like they might have broken down, then they're going from one relationship to the next. That's the children's model of relationships, right?
Yeah.
And so unconsciously they're going to go, well, I've been in this relationship for too long. What am I going to do to get rid of it? Because it's unsafe for them. All sorts of things.
Yeah, you've really got to watch being a role model for children, because they're watching and very impressionable for the first 7 years. So, and more on that in Brendon's book, and how you can sort of pull yourself together to be a great beacon for your children, for your wife, or your relationship and whatnot. So you spent a little bit of time doing transcendental meditation. How did you find that? Tell me a little bit about it.
It's something I still do to this day. That was probably 4 years ago now I started that. That was before I wrote the book and started on this. But before that I was just kind of winging it with meditation, with YouTube videos and all that kind of stuff. And then I can't remember exactly where I heard about it, but I think I just Googled, and that was I was living at the Sunshine Coast at the time, and there was a lady up there that did it, so I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna just do it. And I had a really amazing experience the first time. It was kind of like I had this big whoosh of energy that kind of came over me, and I just felt at peace almost. And then it was like I could see everything around me with my eyes closed, and it was like, waves going everywhere and all of this. And
That is so cool.
Yeah, I actually, the mantra, because in that everyone gets their own individual mantra. Well, supposedly no one knows each other's mantra, so they could just be the same one. But so actually the first 2 days I was saying it wrong, and every time I would come in she'd correct me, and so you do it 4 consecutive days.
Right.
And so I didn't really notice a difference by saying a different thing, and I still don't really comprehend the idea of it, but I don't need to question it. I just do it,
So did you arrive at the mantra, or she told you what the mantra was, or?
No, she told me what it is.
It came to her what it was?
I think somehow they use your age and your date of birth and whatever, and kind of work something out. I think I did look at it a little bit, but not into it too much.
So you still use that same mantra?
Yep, I still do that every day.
And how long do you do it for?
Depends what I've got on, but between 10 to 20 minutes every morning.
Yeah.
With a bit of breath work as well.
You did say you were going to call one of your chapters, instead of just meditation and breath work.
Yeah.
So fill us in why you'd want to include that.
Breath work is something kind of new-ish, but it's been around for a bit, but it's new. And so one thing is, it just gives you, like, you feel very peaceful at it. And I've done a few in big collective groups with the meditations and also the breath work. And one thing that I really experience is like a deep sense of grace afterwards. Kind of like what I said to start. It's like I'm coming back to me. Every time that we let go of things. Breathwork has massive healing powers, especially when you can stimulate the pineal gland, which releases DMT. Joe Dispenza talks about it all the time. In his long course, people don't see this, but he actually has a really intense breathwork as well to start with, and then goes through those things.
Okay.
So the breathwork is what happens. Breathwork is life. Like, you can't live without life. Not breathwork, but you can't live without life. Also, what else is interesting is when we are born and when we die, very, very high levels of DMT are released. When you have breathwork and you go DMT is released, you go to the 4th and 5th dimensions, which is out of the physical world, and I've experienced it firsthand.
Wow.
It's a bit woo-woo to start with. But massive healings happen. Like, I experienced my back had been sore for 5 years, and literally coming out of the experience, it hasn't been sore since.
Holy. Just from breath work?
Yeah. It's amazing. One of the guys that I learnt off, he had a staph infection in his leg, and they either said, we got to cut your leg off at the hip or you would die. And so in 3 weeks from just breathing every single day, healed up completely.
Gee, that's amazing.
So I think, and I'm...
That's also breath work, and also then thinking about where the breath is going.
Yeah. The thing about that too is, like, I'm pretty good with, like, I don't make excuses. I get up and do it. Like, if I wake up and I say to myself, you can stay in bed for a little bit, I'll do like 5 extra sets at the gym to punish myself, because I'm like, you don't, I'm the master.
Skimp out, mate. Yeah. Your mind is the master, not your body.
100%.
Yeah.
But in the breath work, I was like, why do I want to do this for? I did not want to do it. Like, it was crazy intense for me. And it happened a few times that it would come up. And it's in those times of discomfort that so many people then, it's like, oh, I don't want to feel this, and they disappear. And so going into that discomfort intentionally can then lead to a healing. And so the feeling is the healing, right? And so the breathwork experiences that I have, and I'm halfway through a training course doing it as well. I'm going to start bringing that into some live events and stuff. But yeah, starting doing that, it's like I feel a lot more at peace from doing that. So yeah, that's kind of where I'd bring it in. Just do a little bit of breathwork to start with, and then meditation after that. 10 minutes of each, and yeah.
Really, really good tips in your book. I could talk to you for hours because it's my favourite subject, all of this. But, just I think as the foundations for having a good life and, well, you never stress free as you talked about in your book, but to believe in yourself and have faith in yourself, gratitude, being thankful for what you have, even if it's just your 5 senses, you can start somewhere always. There's something to be grateful for. With affirmations, I was saying thank you for all the amazing authors that are coming to me, that are reading their books to me on exactly the topic that I love. And here you are, although it's a men's book, but I'm still taking bits and pieces from that. Oh, do you like talking about anything else, really?
Anything, once I get going. I think one of the biggest, just going on this, I think one of the biggest problems is that people believe they shouldn't have any problems, and that's what causes suffering. Because really, suffering isn't internal, it's our perception of what's happening outside. And, if you believe that you shouldn't have a problem, we always have problems.
Yeah.
They're just higher level problems. So I think that's the thing, is to understand, like, every problem that's in your life is a chance for you to grow.
Yeah.
It's here to help you. I have a different way of looking at too, of like trauma and tragedy and all this kind of stuff, and I'm not downplaying anything at all around it, but I believe it's a chance and opportunity to push us back to our true self and get us aligned to where we want to go. You think about, and I've had so many clients that have gone through relationship breakdowns, and they first come and they want to be back with them and all this kind of stuff, and we work through some things, and I'm like, were you even happy in that relationship? They're like, no. I'm like, so you can be grateful that she left, because you can now follow what's true to you.
Yeah.
And it's generally not until a bit afterwards that we can go, well, our trauma or our pits lead to the transformation and our purpose. And that's why I'm here too, right? Because of that. So it's a different way of looking at things. Yeah. Everyone has that hero's journey story.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's too scary to go back to look at, so they try their whole life trying to avoid it. What you run away from, you always run into.
Yeah.
That's just what happens.
That's what you're here for, to sort that out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think if there's problems, like, dive into them, because there's things on the other side. Jocko Willink, when he was he's I don't know if you know him, he's wrote that book, Extreme Ownership. He's a Navy SEAL that was running all the things in Iraq when the war in Iraq was happening.
Oh, yeah.
And whenever one of his team would come in with a problem, he'd go good. So they could be like chaos happening, and he'd be like, good.
Let's solve this thing.
And so he was like, it's because there's always good that comes from it. And so when I heard that, I'm like, that's genius.
Yeah.
And so whenever someone comes to me with a problem, I'm like, good. So there's always something good going to come out of it.
Yeah, that's so true.
Because if you're not having problems, you don't have a chance to grow, right?
Yeah. You either win or you learn.
100%. Yeah, everyone's worried about failing, but...
No, that's how you win. You fail that many times that you eventually get good at that.
Exactly.
Yeah, so true. Oh, such a great time chatting with you and hearing your book. Thank you for coming in and recording it with me. One more time, your website is?
advancedmensdevelopment.com.au or brendongiebel.com.
All right, awesome. And The Modern Man's Code to Manhood, hopefully, will be out in the next little while, narrated by Brendon himself. Thank you so much for joining me on my podcast today.
It's my pleasure, and thanks for the amazing space to be able to record this book.
Yeah, awesome.
Thank you. Thanks for joining the Simone Feiler Podcast. What's your story? Contact Simone for a chat at brisbaneaudiobookproduction.com.